Full disclosure, I know next to nothing about game development, and I play most of my games on a desktop PC and the Steam Deck, and every now and then I will also play on the console. One of the things you should know about me going forward is, I'm not a hardcore graphics whore, so if you're someone who finds graphics very important, then in certain segments of this video, you may find yourself vehemently disagreeing with me, and guess what? That's totally okay. I see games like God of War and Ghost of Tsushima running on my PlayStation 4 and Doom Eternal running at 120 FPS on my Series S and often think how beautiful they are. I'm also very excited to play God of War Ragnarok on my PlayStation 4, which by the way adds a bit of irony to the title of this video. But now I'm hearing about PC games that need a 3090 graphics card just to avoid going into the settings to get the game to run right. This gives me the feeling that in the very near future, my rig will no longer be among the apex predators of PCs, and I'll need to become more familiar with adjusting my settings just to get a game to run smoothly. Though I use my PC for things other than gaming, this has recently become a concern of mine as I've been hearing things like this from very credible sources.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another PC port review. Today, we are raising a glass to the death of what once was a mid-range PC. That's right. Now we are seeing games completely ship unoptimized in every conceivable way in order to have you, the consumer, buy more GPUs, spend more money on quote-unquote higher-end GPUs in order to run a game at an acceptable frame rate or rely on DLSS or FSR.
Ever since the 40 series graphics cards dropped, it's almost like the industry is trying to send us PC gamers little subliminal messages indicating that soon, even those of us with 3070, 3080, and 3090 graphics cards will be left behind. In the past, as my graphics cards aged to a point where it was difficult to run the latest games, I always fell back to my consoles until I was ready to pull the trigger on a new one. But now it's looking like the grass may not be greener over there either. Lately, I've been seeing so-called devs making comments regarding how difficult it is to develop games optimally for the Series S, which is strange as I'm waiting for God of War Ragnarok to release on the PlayStation 4 in November. One of the devs is an indie developer creating a game called I Am a Fish, a game that even any reasonable person could easily assume was coming out on the Nintendo Switch. On a personal level, this is really no issue for me because I purchased the Series S to either play or replay old 360 games. But the Series X isn't the only current generation console with a little brother. The PlayStation 5 also has a sibling called the PlayStation 4. Though both the Series S and the PlayStation 4 have similar roles in their ecosystems, the Series S is very much a current generation console, whereas the PlayStation 4 is last generation technology. Both the Series X and the Series S are current generation consoles with custom NVMe SSDs, and they both can run games made from the same standard dev kit. According to Sony, the highly advanced SSD in the PlayStation 5 can actually force last generation games to run better. This is just one reason it doesn't make any sense when I read a tweet from a developer, a so-called developer, claiming that the reason a game runs at 30 FPS on the PlayStation 5 is because the Series S is holding the next generation back. The PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 are in a completely different ecosystem, so one would think that the Series S would have absolutely nothing to do with how a game runs on the PlayStation 5. Sony provides developers with a custom dev kit that is completely different from the dev kits used to develop games for the Series X and the Series S. I'm just assuming the reason why the kit had to be custom made is because they're making games for a last generation console and a current generation console. This claim also doesn't make sense because each month there are a number of games being released that were developed to run on Sony's last generation console and their current generation console. Yet I've never heard anyone say the PlayStation 4 is holding back the PlayStation 5, even though the PlayStation 4 is obviously last generation hardware. How is it that a PlayStation 5's highly advanced SSD can force a last generation game to run better, but not a current generation game? But honestly, when I see the number of cross-generation games these developers are making for two consoles from two different generations, I can't help but be impressed. It was a smart move for Sony to put the PlayStation 5's little brother back on the market to compete with the Series X's little brother, because that's more games getting into the hands of what is still a very large customer base for Sony. Not to mention the fact that it will help some of their customers save money because the PlayStation 4 is a lot cheaper than the PlayStation 5. Let's also not forget the fact that devs are still developing games for the Nintendo Switch, which has to be developed to run in both dock mode and handheld mode. I love my Switch, but in comparison to either of the two Xboxes and the PlayStation 5, the Switch is an empty Coke can, but devs are still porting games to it. And speaking of handheld, I'd also like to take a moment to thank all the devs that's working very hard to make games run on the Steam Deck. I know it's not easy, so I'd like to thank all of you. I think this problem is more tied to the demand that publishers are putting on developers. They're constantly asked to make AAA games that look more like movies and last for 40 to 60 hours. This is because investors think that's what gamers demand, even if it causes game prices to increase to $100 a pop. Quality-wise, I'm fine with games like Gears of War, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Halo being the ceiling. In fact, I want my games to look like games. It's okay for a rare 10-hour game that shows off the latest game development technology to come to the market, but it's not gamers that's thirsting for this to become a common practice. An unnamed gamer from the UK was allowed the opportunity to write an opinion piece, and he made a fantastic point. The quality of the best titles have never been higher, but I'm increasingly concerned that publishers have gotten themselves into an inescapable cycle of believing bigger is always better, no matter the cost to the customer or the people making the games. 2 years ago, ex-PlayStation executive Sean Layden stated the following concerning the price of video games. "It's been $59.99 since I started in the business. The cost of games have gone up 10 times. If you don't have elasticity on the price point, but you have huge volatility on the cost line, the model becomes more difficult." I think this generation is going to see those two imperatives collide. Let's be honest. These suits are conveniently telling themselves that this is what gamers and customers want because it's the model that will increase prices and place more money in their pockets. I've had my eye on this problem for a while, and I'm very concerned about the direction these industry investors are taking us. It's like being locked in the back seat of a cab that's going 150 miles an hour that's being driven by a blind person. You see that wall that you're about to crash into, but you're powerless to stop it. But on this subject, I'm gonna give Lord Cognito of the Iron Lords the last word on this.
The thing that is different is the memory. The CPU and the GPU from the X to the S is virtually the same. The issue is the memory. I'm not gonna discount having less memory as not being an issue. I'm not gonna be disrespectful. All I'm saying is that if there's third-party releases that are on Xbox One base, if they're on PC base, and let's not act like the Switch is not out here, y'all. Let me not speculate. Let me go talk to the people. Let me go to talk to the devs that's actually, who gonna remain anonymous for the sake of this. You know what I'm saying? But let me go talk to the people, and they like, Cogla, we ain't gonna be disrespectful, but this is way overblown. And I'm like, really? I'm trying to defend the comments. I'm like, but really people saying, yo, this joint is a potato. Yo, this holding back the dev. Like, they like, bro, this has been going on for years. Like, with pre-Series S, there's always the lowest common denominator that you have to spec for. That has not changed. You know what I'm saying? I remember when people were talking about the cell processor for PS3 was a problem. Now,
okay guys, look, we're gonna go ahead and end it right there. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down, because like I always say, I'm a big boy and I can take it. And if you get some time, please share the video, because you know what? YouTube's algorithm is brutal. And hey guys, as usual, stay safe.